What's going on, hybrids? Coach Mike here. Today I'm going to be taking you through one of the most annoying and common injuries hybrid athletes experience. Something that can affect your lifting, something that 100% can affect your running, something that you don't want to deal with. Achilles tendonitis. I'm going to be taking you through exercises you can implement into your training program, common causes, how to manage it, and things you should know if this is something you're going through. Let's not fuck around. Let's dive in. If you're someone dealing with Achilles tendonitis, I'm sorry to hear it. I've experienced it myself, and it's one of the most annoying injuries to manage, as it's one of those injuries that will 100% affect your ability in the gym and your ability to run. However, all hope is not lost. You can remedy it. You just got to be patient. Achilles tendonitis is an overuse injury of the Achilles tendon. The Achilles tendon is the tendon that basically attaches your calf muscle to the bone over here, your heel or Achilles. When you're experiencing Achilles tendonitis, it can cause pain, stiffness, swelling when you walk, run, go up steps, anything where you basically point your toe or load it, and it can be extremely irritating. It's particularly common in runners because you spend so much time on your feet, and it's commonly caused by long periods of time using your legs or large spikes in training volume or intensity. Now, this injury isn't something that's just going to pop up in a day. It's a slow burn. It's going to gradually worsen over time. So it's important you don't continue to ignore it if you feel like there's something going on. Early intervention can reduce some of the inflammation, the pain, and help that tendon heal. The issue is with tendons is they generally take a little bit longer to heal compared to muscles due to their poorer blood supply. It's important you nip this in the bud early. Left for too long, it'll only worsen, and it's going to prevent you from being able to train. I've seen people who can hardly walk because of how bad their tendonitis gets, and if you think you're going to be able to run with it, you're mistaken. Here are some tips to manage the strain on your Achilles. A gradual increase in the running volume you're doing is going to help you a lot. If your running volume looks like this, where you have a really steep increase in your volume each week, you're going to struggle. Increasing too much too soon is going to cause too much stress on the tendon, meaning it doesn't have time to repair before your next run. The overload in volume is going to cause that tendon to have a bad time as it's continuously under-repaired, and it's going to be in continuous pain and agony as the weeks progress. Instead, you want your running volume to look a little bit more like this, where you have that slower increase over time, something that is a little bit more manageable. A rule I like to use is the 10% rule, where you have your running volume increase by no more than 10% each week. If you're doing 40 kilometers this week and your running volume is going to increase next week, you don't want it to increase by more than 10%. So you wouldn't want to go over 44 kilometers. This principle also applies to lifting, and it's something I apply to a lot of my athletes. Get proper footwear. If you plan on running long distances or for a long period of time, get proper shoes. Running shoes will help you keep your foot stable, make sure your feet aren't beat up after every run, and they're going to give you longevity when you're out there. These are the shoes that I use, Asics Kayanos, most of the time when I run. I also have race shoes, but get whatever shoe works best for you. It's important to get fitted because everyone's foot is different. Get a type of shoe that suits whether you have a high arch, low arch, whether you're neutral, whatever it is. Just get the right shoe for you, and it's going to make a big difference to everything going on up your leg, into your ankle, and so on. Running on softer surfaces can make a big deal to your running experience. If you currently have Achilles tendonitis or you're managing it, running on a softer surface can make things a little bit easier, as the amount of force your Achilles tendon has to absorb with each step decreases. This is in comparison to running on a hard surface like a road or footpath. So if you're someone in this position and you're trying to get your Achilles tendonitis under control, it may be worth running on something like grass, which is a lot softer and more forgiving for the time being until you can progress back to concrete. You should be doing a proper warm-up as well. So if you're someone who isn't warming up before you run or lift anyway, you're a moron, and that baffles me. And manage tendon-based injuries, warming up is going to be one of your best friends. Something you'll notice, and this applies to almost all tendon injuries, is the longer you take to warm up, the less pain you're probably going to feel in that area. For example, if you're someone with a knee injury, if you warm up your knees like a motherfucker and then get under the bar to squat, you probably don't feel as much pain. Or you might even notice that after a few sets, the pain in your knees is actually less regardless of how heavy you're going. Tendons like blood flow. Blood flow is their friend. They just get a little bit less than muscles. So they take longer to warm up than your muscles do, which is why it's super important to spend some time warming up correctly. Warming up is going to get that tendon ready for work. It's going to improve the elasticity of the tendon as well as the contractility of the muscles that it's attached to. So warm up. Don't fuck around. If you're in a place that's extra cold for whatever reason, like it is here in Sydney right now in the winter, take extra time to warm up. If you're somewhere where it's pretty hot and maybe you don't need as long, that's fine, as long as you do something. In terms of a warm-up, there's no right or wrong answer as to what you should be doing. However, I often start my warm-ups with some form of ankle mobility-based movement, just doing ankle revolutions. And then after that, I'll usually do some kind of calf raise to get some blood in the calf, which is often loaded when you're running. And then I might just start walking really slowly, picking up the pace, progressing into maybe a longer, faster jog, run, or whatever it is. The key is try to make your warm-up specific to the task that you're doing. And this applies to any sport. Try to make your warm-up specific to the things you're going to be doing. If I'm lifting in the gym, I'm going to start with a light weight and progress that. If I'm running, I'm going to start at a slower pace, or walking and progress that as well. Often people with calf or Achilles issues when running will land heavily on their toes. When you land heavily on your toes, you're increasing the amount of force that calf/tendon has to absorb and then transfer back into the ground in order to propel you forward. So, for example, if I'm someone who runs really on my toes, it's not that efficient because my calf is contracted the whole time and my Achilles tendon is under constant load. Needless to say, if you're a sprinter or you're running really fast, you will likely land a little bit more on your toes, and that is fine. You're not doing anything wrong. Nor am I saying that running on your toes is bad, because there's plenty of people that toe strike and run like fucking weapons. However, if you're someone with this issue, or you'll find you're getting pain in this area and maybe something you want to record yourself doing, review how you run, okay? So, from my experience, when I've helped people with this injury, they're running on their toes. Instead, what we're cueing them to do is to try to land a little bit more on their midfoot. Or if they're struggling to even do that, I might suggest trying to land a little bit more on their heel. But the key is trying to ensure that they don't land or put too much emphasis on their toes, particularly when hitting the floor after each step. So instead of running like this, we're looking for them to run like this, with a little bit more dorsiflexion, meaning a little bit more toes up towards the face and landing through the middle of the foot. Landing a little bit more midfoot. It's something that may take you a little while to understand and practice, but like I said, if you are someone that needs to change the way you run potentially because of this issue, this is something you can try, is that you may need to change your cadence. Your cadence is the number of steps you take per minute when you run. The easiest way to figure out your cadence is to record a video, 15 seconds of you running, see how many steps you take in that 15 seconds, and then multiply that by 4 or however long a minute is. And then you want to go from there. So if I take 20 steps in 15 seconds, I'm going to multiply that by 4, and I know I've taken 80 steps in that minute, which would be super low. When it comes to cadence, there is a range that is ideal, and there is no one size fits all here. For most people, it's anywhere between 160 to 180 steps per minute. The faster you run, the higher your cadence usually is. The slower you run, usually your cadence can be a little bit less. But again, this does not apply the same for everybody. Now, something you may want to consider, like I said, record yourself, see how your cadence is, review how your foot is landing on the floor. If you make alterations to your cadence, you're likely also going to make alterations to how your foot contacts the ground with each step. Someone that does really little steps like this and you're always landing on your toes, decrease your cadence in that instance, which means you would increase your stride length, increase the width or length of your steps like that, so you can land a little bit more midfoot. If you're someone that doesn't take many steps, you find your cadence is really low, say 150 or below, therefore you might be overstriding with each step in that your feet are landing in front of your body, therefore causing your body to absorb a lot of that force with each step after you land. Like that. That's a dramatization, but it would look something like that. Therefore, I may cue the individual to take smaller steps so their feet can land a little bit more underneath them. If you're finding you have calf pain, you may want to review the way you run. Do that by recording yourself from the side. See how many steps you're taking per minute. Adjust accordingly. If you're someone who's landing a lot on your toes, try to land a little bit more midfoot. If you're someone who's always landing on your toes, then landing on your heels or whatever, try to land a little bit more on your toes. Vice versa, you're gonna need to find what works for you. These examples I'm giving you right now are not one size fits all. They're examples, but they're definitely applicable to those with Achilles issues. These exercises can easily be implemented into your training program. These exercises include things like isometrics, eccentrics, isotonic contractions, as well as plyometrics. All those things sound fancy, but you'll understand them super quickly. Now, the areas we're primarily going to target are that of the ankle. However, this is not the only area you should worry about, but I'm not going to fucking drag this video out and start going into stuff about the hip, knee, and all that kind of stuff. So we're just going to focus right now on the ankle itself. One of the first exercise interventions I tend to use, and this is for those in the quite early or acute stages of the injury, are isometrics. Isometrics are a muscular contraction of the ankle or calf that do not stretch or shorten. It basically maintains its position under load the whole time. So an example of that, and this is one that I'll exactly use with my clients, is I'll have them do a calf raise like this, where we go up, hold, and we're gonna hold this position for time, as opposed to going up and down doing reps. While they're up here, they're focusing on pushing their foot down into the floor and tensing that calf muscle, which is where the Achilles tendon attaches to. We'll do this over time, and it's gonna help manage that injury. What it's gonna do is improve blood flow to the area, and we can increase the duration over time in order to progress it. Depending on how the athlete responds, we can then look at including load. So holding a load, same thing. Isometric, holding the position, increasing the time or load now as they improve. Now we're looking at exercises like eccentrics. Eccentrics are where you put emphasis on the lengthening portion of the muscular contraction. This can also apply to like any other calf raise movement that you do, whether it be a standing calf raise, barbell, whatever you want to do, whatever is working for you, the same principle applies. An eccentric is simply pushing forward and then controlling the way back. 3, 2, 1, until I get a stretch. You can even go slower, push forward, you can add in an isometric hold, and then bring it back. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, until you get a stretch again. And then repeat, forward and back. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The benefit of doing exercises like isometrics and eccentrics is that they'll provide some blood flow into the tendon, help that tendon repair under load, and also because the weight is usually pretty heavy, you can't go as heavy as you normally would, it will force you to be able to control the movement and be able to get pain-free movements in. You need to be able to do pain-free movements to be able to progress the injury over time. If you're always doing things that hurt, there's a chance that you're potentially causing more damage. So you want to find pain-free movements and progress those as much as you can tolerate. Maybe you're past the point of just doing isometrics, maybe you're past the point of just doing eccentrics. The best thing to do is once you can do one, start to include the other, but don't do one without the other at all. It's great to do them both together. Once you've done that, you can then start doing regular exercises where you can now just focus on increasing the capacity and strength of that calf by just doing calf raises as normal, and you can do whatever calf raises or whatever it is that you like. These particular muscles, again, are targeting that calf muscle that attach to the Achilles tendon, increasing blood flow to the area. Now, an important thing I want to highlight here is that sometimes your Achilles tendon will take more of the weight or load because your ankle range of motion is quite poor. If you're not able to dorsiflex your ankle, which is where you pull your toes up towards your face basically, then your ankle can be forced, or your Achilles tendon can be forced to take more of that load in order to compensate or absorb some of the force that your body's doing while it runs or lifts. So an exercise I like to do often before I run is something called a tib raise, which is where I'll just put my legs out in front of me and just focus on pulling my toes up towards my head. The reason why I'm doing this is that by strengthening this muscle, the anterior tibialis, the one on the front of the shin, the one that's responsible for pulling your toes up or foot up towards your face, can improve your ankle dorsiflexion, your ability for your knees to travel over your toes, therefore your ankle range of motion. Okay, hybrids, that's a wrap on another video. I hope you've gotten something out of it. I've shown you how to manage Achilles tendonitis, strategies you can implement into your training right now, as well as exercise types and variations you can implement into your daily exercise routine or warm-up in order to help manage this injury long-term and hopefully prevent it from happening in the future. If you've liked this video, make sure you subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.